Do you ever wonder how you come up with a move on a chessboard? Would you believe it if I told you that every respectable chess player has a system in their head? In this video, I'm gonna teach you how to calculate in chess the right way, how to come up with moves and stop blundering your pieces. Ready? Let's go. Calculation is a must skill for any chess player who wants to actually start winning their games. In this video, I'm going to be giving you a structured theoretical knowledge, which I will also back up with practical exercises, because chess theory without practice is like learning how to drive without actually driving. For the record, women are good drivers, and so are Asians. I'm gonna give you 4 principles that you will be following if you really want to succeed, and trust me, you will. Principle number 1. Candidate moves. We're gonna talk about how to make a list of the candidate moves. First and foremost, when you look at any position, let's say this one, you have to ask yourself, what are my candidate moves? What are the forcing moves? Meaning checks, captures, and threats, also known as attacks. In this particular video, we're gonna focus on checks only. So let's take a look at this position over here. It is actually taken from my game against a young talent, a future grandmaster. I found a very nice sequence of moves that I suggest you to take a look at and try to guess yourself. You can also pause the video. 3, 2, 1. You found it? No? That's okay. So if you didn't have a system on how to actually find the candidate moves, your approach to this position would be pretty chaotic. Just like this one. What's your rating, guys?
I'm like 1550.
Like 960.
960 and 1550 are gonna take this position into their hands, and we will see, actually into their brain, and we will see how they are gonna calculate it. When you think about a position, like how do you calculate? What's your process of calculation?
I look at the position and I get a feel for what type of position it is. If it's a more open position, more attacking moves come to mind. If it's a little bit more closed, something a little more positional comes to mind. I will tend to maybe play a little bit of a worse aggressive move as opposed to maybe a better, a more sensible, safe move.
I try to play very safe. I don't want to make any moves where things are just like left outstretched.
So is this like chaotic?
Yeah, this I would hate.
Take me through your mind process. How would you approach this position? Let's start with 960?
960, yeah.
960. Okay, let's go with you first.
Well, first, I see these double pawns. The knight being pinned to this undefended queen gets me. This doubled pawn and these 2 rooks on this diagonal, because usually you don't see rooks diagonal to each other, so it just like jumps out to me. This knight defends both the rooks, so for now it's not a problem, but it might become a problem later. This pawn is hanging, in my opinion.
Like, let's say like 1 minute on the clock. What would you do here?
Probably trade the rooks on the G.
You would trade the rooks?
Yeah.
Do you have like options? Would you have options?
Yeah, I'd probably go for the pawn because I wouldn't really not like this knight pinned to a queen that's undefended. The queen and the rook eye this rook, and it's only defended 1 time, so you're losing that rook. Or you could take with the pawn. You open up your e file.
Don't cheat. Don't look there.
Yeah, I'd probably take the pawn with the pawn.
All right, great. And now we're gonna see how
1550-ish.
1550 is gonna calculate this position and decide on a move here. Let's go.
So I am a little bit more of an aggressive tactical player. So the first thing that comes to mind with me is there's 3 rooks.
Okay, there are 3 rooks, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, fuck, what? You guys put this position, damn it. This rook didn't exist. Who put it?
That A rook is not my job.
Okay, it was actually mine, I set you up.
Yeah.
Great job, you know?
So back to what I was saying, I like to look for a little bit more of the tactics that exist in the position. This knight is hanging, but I am kind of interested in if I need to do anything about it. The first thing I'd look at would be queen f5.
Okay.
Because I already have these 2 rooks lined up here. If I play queen f5, actually,
It works, actually.
the queen f5 could work, because if he takes it, I take that.
Check
and
take.
yeah, if I need to give a check, that is. My next move that I would look at would be something like rook h4. My third move I would think of would be e takes d4 to get rid of the threat. And when I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking I do have a material advantage. I have 2 knights for his 1 knight. It also would seem okay to me to play e takes d4 and just play a little slower.
Guys, that's perfect. Now, how would you approach this position? If you have a structured way of thinking, you would first and foremost start with checks. So the first check you take a look at is going to be rook takes g8. And then rook takes g8 and you don't see anything. Your second move that comes to your head should be another check. What is any other possible check in this position? Oh, queen to h7. Sacrifice the queen, both as gambit. Oh my god, we just gave away the queen. Do they stop the line here? No. Rule number 2. Never stop your calculation until you've finished with all forcing checks. For instance, here, we sacrificed the queen, and let's be honest, if it wasn't for me, you probably would have already dropped this line before because you thought, I don't want to give away my queen. But if you have a structured way of thinking and calculating the lines during the game, then you probably would have spotted that there are at least 3 more checks. You should proceed with the checks that have the most common sense. For instance, we have a rook g7, random giving away the queen. We have a rook f7, giving away the rook for the knight, and queen takes. There are more checks, but the most common sense making move is knight f6. Then the king has actually 2 squares to go, king h8 and king h6. King h6 losing right away because of the forcing mate in one. And then we go take a look at king h8. And we continue with the same way. We have 2 more checks, rook h4 or rook h3. So the first move is rook h3. It's a less logical one. It doesn't make as much sense because the king will get away on g7. So we continue with the rook h4 check. Now black has the only way to stop the check, meaning knight h6. Rook takes h6. Again, one last move for black to do, which is queen to h7, sacrificing the queen, but it doesn't work because rook takes h7, checkmate. Wins the game on spot because the knight is protecting the rook, and voila. And with this example, you can clearly see that you don't even need to calculate any other checks on the move 2 because you already reached the checkmate, so you just saved yourself a time and won a point.
Join my Russian chess school in the description below. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to have more educational videos like this.
Let's take a look at the example number 2. Before I show you the solution, how about you put a timer for yourself and try to figure it out? Maybe you can find it without my explanations. 3, 2, 1. Good job! It's okay, don't worry, it's fine. I'll show you. I decided to ask my grandmaster coach on how he would actually handle this position. Kaden, you look at this position, what are your first thoughts?
So, I mean, in this position, the first thing I'm going to be focusing on, of course, is the checks. You know, checks, captures, threats. All right, I'm a grandmaster. I can't help it. I'm already thinking about rook f7, rook f7, king moves, then there's another check. And then the king moves, and then it's like we have so many options with a check and a taking a pawn, and which leads to a threat. But it all starts with the check, right? Because I control the position. If I check my opponent, they have to respond to me. So I mean, I also notice things like just the lack of kind of space for the king. So I'm going to prioritize rook f7 even more as far as candidates. So okay, rook f7, king g8, and now here, what really caught my eye that I was already mentioning is this check with knight e7. And here's where I think I would pause because we've done the checks, but there are 2 moves that really catch my attention. Now, knight takes f5 first, which threatens the rook and threatens checkmate because we take away the king square. And then, you know, second would be probably rook f8, like those 2 moves. Now, I can quickly kind of see, okay, knight takes f5, then the rook could stop my checkmate, sadly. So I might put a quick in my mind like, hey, if the other move doesn't work, I'm going to come back to that. But then I'm going to start thinking about this because the options continue after rook f8. Again, a check, king g7. And now, again, we have more options with knight takes f5 and rook g8. But if you're already thinking about this position, you're already cluing in. When I first saw this position, admittedly, being the greedy miser of material, I thought knight takes f5, take a pawn with check. But now I already noticed it, rook g8. Forces, king, f6, and then knight d5. So, I mean, seemingly out of nowhere, we're just throwing these checks, but we're not. Like, we're pausing, seeing the other moves, focusing on these moves because they're check, they're more forcing. And in this one, I think I can already stop my calculation because That's a checkmate right there.
Yay!
Let's move on. Game over. Shake hands. Sign me up for the next one.
Thank you, Kaden. As you can see, when a grandmaster approaches the position, a lot of things come to their mind. Essentially, both captures and checks come at the same time, and they see them simultaneously and make the right conclusions in like split of a second. Now, for you, it might be way more complicated and overwhelming. So I'm gonna give you a detailed example and structure how you should actually organize your thoughts. And if you already understood it from the previous example, you should not consider captures at first, but focus only on the checks. First candidate move here, rook f7 check, king g8. Now, we do not even consider rook takes f5 because it's a capture, it's a second priority. We look at the first priority, which is knight e7. King goes to h8. We do not consider capture. Similarly, we continue with the forcing checks. Rook f8 check, king g7. Again, knight f5 is possible, but it's not making sense because king takes rook, so we don't look at that at all. We look at the checks that do not hang pieces, the checks that make more of a common sense. Rook g8 check, king f6, and the last check in this position. Obviously, we have rook g6, random rook f8, losing the knight, so we look at the check that does not hang any piece, which is knight d5, and oh my god, it's a checkmate! By the way, here is one more pro tip. A move that does not necessarily come to your mind is a move backwards. But you should always doubt that thought, semi-instinct of yours, and always challenge yourself and consider moves backwards, such as knight back to d5 is actually a great move. It delivers a checkmate. Rule number 3. Always start calculating from the most logical move, from the move that makes the most sense to you. And in this case, we're only talking about checks. For instance, this is the position, example number 3. Please take some time to figure it out on yourself. I'll give you a few seconds. You can even pause the video. 3, 2, 1. It's okay. So, how do we actually understand which moves are logical and which moves are not? The most logical moves are the moves that are not hanging any pieces of ours, the moves where we bring new pieces to the attack, and thirdly, when we talk about how to checkmate the king, we always want to consider checks that are not letting our opponent king run away, like a runaway bride. No, we don't want that. If we can make it, it's always better to bring the opponent's king to the center, because this is where we're gonna cook him. So, how are we going to approach this position? First of all, we're going to take a look at all random checks that are not making any sense. Queen g8, rook takes, queen f8, rook takes, and queen e8, let's say rook takes, or king take, or rook takes, or whatever. Then we have a queen h7, but let's say the king can go back. And then we would have to repeat queen h8. So that move makes less sense. And then we see two very juicy moves. First one is queen g7, and the second one is queen f6. So when it comes to queen f6, the king can just go back to g8, and then we would have to repeat queen h8, and then king goes back. We didn't achieve anything. So here comes the only logical check of them all, which is queen g7. Check. Now black king has two ways to escape. Queen e8 doesn't work because of forced checkmate, so they have to go king e6. And you see the sign. The king goes up towards the center. Great. Let's continue with the most forced checks. We have knight f5, but king goes to d6. We have queen e5, but king goes back to f7. And then we have, obviously these checks do not work. We also have queen g6, but probably the most logical is going to be queen f6. King t5. Again, we have few checks, queen d6 random, queen e5 random, giving away the queen. We have knight f4, but the king goes up, and I don't know what's going to happen then. Probably good things. Actually, knight f4, king goes up, or knight king goes up, and then we go check, but then there is a king takes. Well, maybe that works, maybe that doesn't. We also have knight c3, taking both squares, only move. I love when my opponent has only moves. King c4, and now b3, checkmate. Obviously, queen e6 doesn't work, queen c6 doesn't work, queen f7 doesn't work, and that's it. Looks good to me. Rule number 4. Just like in math, in chess, the order of operations matters. Meaning you wouldn't want to change the move order, just like you wouldn't want to change what is inside of the parenthesis versus outside of the parenthesis. That sounds confusing. Let me explain. Here is another example. Please take a few seconds to try and see if you can figure this out on your own. You tried. That's already good. Taking a look at this position, we have a couple of logical checks that come to my mind. Obviously, this queen d2, queen d1, queen e3 kind of looks random. There is also queen f1. All right. But then I see there is queen e1 and there is knight d3. Let's start with knight d3. Knight d3 check, only move king b1. Now we have, let's say, queen d1 or queen e1. And on both checks, the rook is going to defend. And then queen b3 doesn't work. Queen b4 maybe works, but the king goes out. I'm not sure. That sounds interesting, but I haven't found anything yet. I go back to my position exactly here, and then I think, what if I change the order of operations? So if I want to swap the move order, instead of starting with knight d3, what if I start with queen e1? And then king b2, I have another check, knight d3, same thing, I just swap the order. The only move, actually two moves, queen a3 or queen b3, but whatever white does, oh my god, queen b4, checkmate. We could have indeed started with knight d3. That would be more logical because that would actually bring a new piece to the attack, the principle that we just discussed before. But we saw that it didn't work out. Instead, we tell ourselves, what if we swap the order? And that's how we find out the checkmate. Good. Let's go next. The last rule, number 5. Never let your opponent king escape. Obviously, if you have an option. Our first look is gonna be at queen g7, queen h6, and queen h8. But all these moves do not work because the king goes away. King e7, and then how the heck are we gonna stop him? Queen e5, king d8, blah, 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 runaway bride. We don't want that. Now, let's take a look at another check. Well, obviously not rook g8, that doesn't make sense, we don't have enough pieces to attack. But what if we take a look at this queen d6? Oh, blockade, rook e7. Now, let's continue. We're not gonna give away the rook, instead we're gonna give a logical queen h6 check. King has to go to e8, and you found it. Great job, rook to g8. Checkmate! Woo! Congratulations! Now you have all the knowledge you need to understand how to find forced checkmates and have your mind, structured whenever you're trying to come up with a move. Essentially here, this is the exercise for you. Can you find a checkmate in 4 following our logic? I'll give you some time. Actually, pause this video. 3, 2, 1. Go. Most forcing moves, the only checkmate we have here is bishop takes f7. Now, any piece has to take it, queen or rook. Let's say queen takes f7. Now, once again, the only forced check here is sacrificing the rook to h7. Shout out to Levy. King takes h8, and you got it. Well, actually, you have 2 checks, but obviously rook or queen, rook h1 or queen h2. Queen sounds more logic. King g8 only move, and queen to h7 checkmate. Here is one more exercise for you. A forced mate happened in a famous Morphy game, which actually wasn't supposed to be a forced mate, but black didn't find the right defense. Let's take a look at this position. We see a clear king of the hill, and we take a look at the most forced mates. I'm not gonna give you any timer, but you're welcome to pause the clock right now if you want to. Too late. Queen g4, check. The king has to go queen d3. Now, we have few checks. Queen f5 doesn't work because they protect. Queen f3 doesn't work. They can somewhat protect, or they can also take a pawn. So, the cute queen e2. Keep in mind that white has to win because they're rook down. King c2, now a very beautiful discovery check. We obviously can do queen d1, but d3, discovering the king. And black made a mistake. They should have played king to b1, but instead they took the bishop thinking, queen d1 doesn't work, king b2. Why not take a bishop, especially if you're playing against Morphy? But Here Morphy found a beautiful checkmate in one. Let's see if you can find it. Let me know in the comments down below. Who said the king lost his right to castle? No one cancels staircase technique. Last but not least, here is your homework. Because I have a school, and this is what I usually do. I give my students homework. This position happened in my immortal game against Grandmaster from Poland, Grzegorz Gajewski, who is actually now a second of the current world champion, Gukesh. That's right. So here black is in the center of the position. I'm almost done. Here is the king in the center, another king of the hill. Let's see if you can find a forced checkmate or any win to win this game just like I did, knowing everything that I taught you about calculation. Now, if you want to see more of these videos, please let me know in the comments down below and check out my school where I teach people how to actually use their brain in a chess game. Thank you for watching. Bye!